lumpy all day.
Yeah, I figured.
We will now call our regular council meeting to order. We'll start as usual with a moment of silence. So, pray for if you wish, or the messages of the business of the county this evening. Thank you. We'll now have the land acknowledgement for our public meeting. I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting tonight on the ancestral lands of the Mi'kmaq people. Thank the ancestors of today's Mi'kmaq people for sharing these special lands with our ancestors, whether they came 400 years or 4 years ago. Further, we recognize and respect treaties signed with the Mi'kmaq Nation over hundreds of years, and acknowledge the many wrongdoings done toward the Mi'kmaq Nation over those years. We seek to reconcile those wrongdoings by our actions so we may all live in peace and harmony. Thank you. Okay, now we need an approval of our agenda.
So move, Peter.
David, seconded. Any additions or deletions from that agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against, motion carried. Now, on the minutes from our May the 2nd meeting, are there any omissions, errors, or corrections in those minutes? Any errors, omissions, or corrections? Last time, any errors, omissions, or corrections? Seeing none, we will approve those as they appear before you. Now, we have 5 pieces of correspondence on various matters there. Read them. Are there any comments on those pieces of correspondence? Hearing none, seeing none. We'll read along. Resolutions. Councilman McKeel, you're doing our general operating budget for 22-23. Take over.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warden. I'm pleased to present the general operating budget for April 2022 to March 2023. Our budget this year is a balanced budget, and I'll begin by the revenue. So for taxes, our budget collected this year is $18,125,547. Grants in lieu of taxes, $256,674. Other revenue from own source is $358,925. I'm sorry. Yeah. Sales of services, $205,500. Unconditional transfers from other governments is $439,095. Conditional transfers from other governments is $41,106, and other transfers is $489,882, bringing us for a total revenue for the 2022-23 budget of $19,916,729. Our expenditures are general government services of $3,208,319, protective services of $5,662,844. Transportation services in the amount of $347,486. Environmental health services in the amount of $2,253,650. Public health and welfare services, $138,984. Environmental development services, $503,033. Recreation services, $853,190. Cultural services, $238,112. Education, $5,297,111, and special items for $1,200,000, and financial transfers of $214,000, bringing us to total expenditures $19,916,729 for a balanced budget. Continue with the resolution. This is the resolution for the tax rates, 2022-2023. Be it resolved by the Municipal Council that the estimated expenditures of the municipality of the County of Pictou for the fiscal period April 1st, 2022 to March 31st, 2023 is approved in the amount of $19,916,729. And after making the allowance for estimated revenue in the amount of $3,558,890, the amount of $16,357,839 is required for general taxation of the assessed valuation of $1,784,000 to 22. I didn't read that right. $1,784,000, 22,000 and.
You're right for the
Thank you. $1,784,000,000. There we go. 22,220. Therefore, be it resolved that the tax rate for the fiscal period April 1st, 2022 to March 31st, 2023 be set at 0.1815 for $100 of assessment for residential and resource property, and at $1.825 for $100 of assessment for commercial property. And be it further resolved, the rates and taxes for the current period may be collected by warrant of distress without further notice if not paid on or before the 15th day of October 2022, with all costs and expenses of levy and on all proceedings incidental thereto. And further, if the said taxes are not paid before the 15th day of October 22, an additional penalty charge will be payable in accordance with the municipality's interest rate policy. Dated in Pictou, Nova Scotia, the 6th day of June 2022, signed by myself, Councillor Darrell McKeel, and seconded by Councillor Chester Dewar.
Second.
Sorry for my numbers.
So, for the presentation of our budget for next year, 22-23, and the tax rate, the results from that, which is minimally lower, I think, than last year, but very close. So, are there any questions on the resolution or on the budget at this point? Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are two reasons why I will not be supporting the budget again this year. First, I disagree with how the equalization was calculated. The fire department was last year, and nothing has changed with the calculation. This is year 2 of a 3-year program, and I still don't feel it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. So the fire departments are being forced to provide this equalization when it's just another burden to place on them. And secondly, I just sat down and did some rough calculations by inverting the $100,000 for the municipal service grant monies, and District 2 is losing substantially in this decision. It's in the vicinity of $7,000. District 3 is around $5,000, District 4 is around $4,000, and District 1 is just under $1,000. And the other districts all benefit from a high of $3,500 to just over $100. Normally, I would accept this type of equalization, but the price tag is too high for one of the largest sources for retrieving this money. Speaking for District 2, the majority of council money to our area is municipal service grant money. In my 13 years plus on council, my district has received 2 community grants, one for assistance for renovations for a community center, and one last year for our pickleball court. There has been no infrastructure project of any kind done in District 2 restoring my term, and yet much of the work that is done in this county depends a great deal on the taxes that do come from District 2. Many of our tax dollars go to the very areas where we're not just receiving the benefits of this so-called equalization funding, but are benefiting as well by the subsidization contributed to the many water and sewer projects in our county for such items as hydrants and so forth. So to me, all this equalization is doing is widening the gap how much District 2 must contribute to these less funded areas. I'm just going to use District 6 as an example only because we have a project currently on the go there for an infrastructure project for Salem water and wastewater, and it's estimated to cost us about $5 million for approximately 30 homes. So that is over $160,000 per home. I'm pretty sure that each of these homes will not appear without this charge. The county's portion of this cost will be coming from a general revenue, which we all contribute to, and again, a large portion coming out of District 2. I know I can speak for my district on this. We want to see these large projects go ahead. We need to see good infrastructure projects happen in this county, and we certainly do not mind paying a fair share to see how this happens. But when the only monies we see trickling back to District 2 is municipal service grant money, then I think it should be done the way it was set up based on the percentage of taxes collected from the district. District 6 will benefit by another $3,000 by inverting that $100,000. So they have the benefit of a great infrastructure project, which should pay great dividends down the road for the county. But in the meantime, District 2 is losing more. So for those 2 reasons, I just cannot support the project this year.
Okay, thank you. I have some comments to make, but I'll leave it to the end. Go ahead, Councilor Royce.
No, it's just a question. Environmental development services, what that consists of?
GIS, your
environmental development services is GIS, department, municipal planning, regional,
climate change.
climate change, they're all under there.
Okay, any further questions, Councilor Dave first?
Yeah, I would like to point out that in our budget, more than $5 million, which is basically a flow through a tax collection that goes for education, You remove that from our budget, down under, around 14 million. Protective services then use up about 37% that budget. They're very, very pricey. On some of the points that Councilor Watt just raised, in my district, we don't get any municipal service grant, or any municipal grant funds, sidewalks, infrastructure projects. It's been that way for 20 years. The purpose of government is to redistribute. Those who have more, those who have less. And we set up a service grant fund, try to help out the districts that are not along the shore, that are not along the sides. Otherwise, this imbalance will become greater and greater and greater. So we're trying to address that. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions on the budget or on the resolutions? Okay, if not, I would like to say that District 6 is my district that was referred to by Councilor Warden, and the time I've been there, it's the same amount of time as Councilor Warden was joined in 2008 with Council here. And this is the first major project district that I've represented the time I've been here for 14 years. I don't make any apologies for the people of Salem, but we haven't had any decent water to drink for 50 years or more, probably longer than that. And so I know we all have to wait our time until our projects come due. And there was only one council grant that I'm aware of at the time I've been there. And that was on the top of Green Hill, and that served all the residents of the county for sure. So I think when we look at our new municipal service grant funding, nobody's losing. This is new money we put in, an extra $50,000. It's just distributed differently than what normally would be based on assessment. It means some areas continue to get further hit, others continue to lag. So this was put in on the last 50,000 to try and even that up a little bit. So I don't think anybody's losing any money. Everybody will have more money than they had last year. I think District 2 is probably at the top of that total list. When you look at the 300,000 that's there, I think District 2 is probably at the top of it. So maybe evening up a little bit, but I don't think anybody's losing. But I did have one question that has to do with on the tax motion. If you pay on the 15th of October, let's say, or you pay on the 16th, are we charging interest on the 16th? Or it was said last time when we went over this, I had some complaints from people for being charged interest on the first day. That, well, once it's back to regular, it's the 15th of the month, they wouldn't charge interest at the end of the month. Some people quite upset that we were wanting to send them an interest bill for one day. If for some reason, sometimes it was banking reasons or whatever, something didn't get moved over in time. So will people be charged interest if they pay on the 16th? No. Okay. Thank you. All right. Any further questions on our budget and our tax rates? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried, 1 nay vote. Okay, thank you for that. It's one of our most important things we do every year. So it's, I know everybody put a lot of work into this, and I'd like to thank our staff at this time for all the work that they put into it, particularly Karen and Brian, and a lot more behind the scenes. I know, as Councilor Turner said earlier, it's not easy with all the increased prices all the time on things to not only fund the balance budget, but to do it with keeping our tax rates the same. We all realize that people's tax bills don't stay the same. If your assessment goes up, and a lot did this year because a lot got came out, the part we can control here is the start to do with the tax rate. We don't have any control of the assessment. PPSC does that, and that can be appealed by the president. Okay, let's move on to C, municipal service grants. Councilor Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Be resolved by the municipal council for the municipality of the county of Metro The council approved payment of the following municipal service grants. And I'm just going to read the total for each district. District number 1, $23,540. District number 3, $18,390. District number 9, $18,000. District number 2, $64,067. District number 5, $17,875. District number 10, 150. District number 10, $12,800 for a grand total of $158,672. I so move. Seconded by Councillor One.
Okay, thank you. You've heard the resolution on the board. Okay, under District 10, I've just been given a piece of paper that shows it at 19,900 instead of 12,800 on the Thorburn Cemetery. So, oh, the total for the district should be 19,900 rather than 12,800 in District 10. That was a misprint, not total. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded, the resolution, and that's the municipal service grants for those 4 districts, 10, 5, 2, 9, 3, 1. I think that's 6 districts. Okay, we have some questions on those, so Peter, go ahead.
Just what I'd like to find out, we were going to look at making the donation or whatever to the backpack program. And I had that in there, but to give them 800 if we don't pass this council, when is that going to come up to see if we're going to do it or not?
It's on here, okay, so it'll be covered next on here.
Oh, good, okay, thanks.
Deal with that. It's not there.
So it has to go back to committee.
Okay, it has to get, sorry, Peter, head up, has to go back to committee. There wasn't a decision made at the council grant meeting.
Right.
On that, because of, I think we weren't clear on how widespread this was, but not that it has to go back to finance committee. There. Okay, Councilor Watt.
Just could you check the total in the district? I think it should be 68.
68.
Yeah,
That's what 64 is.
it's still 64 there. Yeah, still 64 on the
68.
68 it should be, yeah.
I think District 10 is, I have to check District 10 because I think there's some. Which one's in District 10 on that list?
Thorburn District 4 Memorial for 1,500, for Persons Mills for 3,300, District 13 Recreation Planning Commission for 3,000, Thorburn District Fire Department for 3,000, Thorburn Cemetery Association for 2,000.
Okay, there's some, yeah.
Some missing?
No, there's not some. It's 12/8, sorry, it's 12/8.
It's 12/8, so we had that one right the first time, we'll go back to 12/8. Another problem here?
No, just District 2 was just 68, that was a typo.
Okay, yeah, that was a typo, so the District 2 will be 68,000. Okay, so again, we have 6 districts there, it's a lot of places getting some help from the taxpayers for government, that's a good thing. So are there any other questions, Councilor Dave Parker?
Just trying to keep track of some totals here, and I'm hearing numbers like 23,000, 18,000, 19,000, 12,000, and then 68,000. This is from the district citizen. Okay, but not all. Nope.
I could just clarify for Councilor Parker, if you're looking for the Dickinson Fire Department, they have not used any municipal service grant money for 7 years, trying to come up with that $48,000 because they are in the process of replacing it.
Okay, is there any further comments on the motion to approve the municipal service grant? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against, motion carried. Deputy Warden Murray, Council Grants, and into our budget.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Whereas numerous applications for funding were received and considered by the municipality during the preparation of 2022-23 general operating budget. He asked was over $1 million that these applications. Council grants currently Pictou County $3,000. Chad Transit for operating expense $59,500. Virtual Gaming Club, Seawood Construction $5,000. Systems for a Healthy Pictou County, fifth installment, that's a doctor recruitment support, 242. Dean's operating expense for $20,000. McDonald, Rebecca Lodge, 108, walk around ramp, power door lighting, washrooms, and heat pump, 5,000. The Glasgow Farmers Market Barker, third of 30 installments, building construction of 15,000. The Cleveland Fisheries Museum for lighting improvements, 4,000. Pictou Agriculture Society for lawn tractor wages, insurance, etc., 15,000. Pictou County Chamber of Commerce large business award sponsorship was 1,500. Pictou County Christmas Fund telethon donation of 1,000. Pictou County Mental Illness Family Support Bright Smiles Down Project 2,500. Pictou County Volunteer Ground Search and Rescue operating expense for 6,000. Pictou United Church Pillow Cases for Aberdeen and IWK Hospitals 1,000. Frequent Seawood Tree Festival event expenses 1,000. Thorburn 150 Historical Kiosk Society construction of kiosk 5,000. Viola's Place Society facility renovations 9,500. Community Development Grants. District 1 Development Society giving coordinator 5,000. District 13 Recreation and Planning Commission coordinator was 1,750 unspent from 21-22. So we'll have to take $5,350. East River Valley Community Development Association community coordinator 5,000. River John Area Recreation Development Association coordinator 5,000. Total there is 18,250. Recreation grants, the Autism Nova Scotia Pictou County chapter swim program expense 3,000. Creative Pictou County for expenses 5,000. The Cost Entertainment Center Society operating expense 15,000. District 13 and Recreation Planning Commission operating expense for the McDonald Memorial Rink 25,000. East River Recreation Natural Playground 10,000. Festival Tartans event expense 1,000. Heatherville Pipes and Runs operating expense 500. Equine Commission operating grant 15,000. Equine Commission Association replacement of the ice plant 7,000. 7,000 over 2 years. This year is 35,000. Little Harbor Pickleball Club, the second of 2 installments for court construction 20,000. The NA Galish Pipes and Drums expenses $500. The NNEC, NRHS, Tavistock Academy, and Pictou Academy first graduation expense of 4,400. Pictou County 4-H to replace doors. The K building 10,000. Pictou County Resourceful Society operating expense 500. Pictou County Snowrider Snowmobile Club second of 2 installments for groomer and tractor 12,500. Pictou County Trails Association the third of 3 installments for trail development 10,000. Pictou Lobster Carnival event expenses 5,000. Rio Canadian Recreation the second of 2 installments for roof and deck of 12,500. Rivertown Festival Days event expenses 2,500. Riverview Home Volunteer Association programming, swimming, and day trips 4,950. Chipector Society third of 3 installments restoration project $33,333. The Jubilee event expenses 3,000. Westport Area Recreation Planning Commission replacement of outside condenser 5,000. Total of that category is 233,683, and the grand total altogether is $430,133. Day Pictou Nova Scotia, 6-day June 2022. I so move this resolution and second. Councilor McKeel.
So seconded.
Okay, moved and seconded. I have one addition to make here before we open it up for discussion. As we discussed when we had our budget meeting the other night, for the District 13 Recreation Planning Commission under operating expenses, we had agreed to put an extra 32,000 that would have gone to being transferred from what would have gone to the Wellness Center to go to the Art McDonald Memorial Ring to assist them with the deficits left over from 2 years of COVID in a row. We did agree to transfer that money. I think that was the right word, Aaron. Transfer the money from one account to another. That's 32,000. Okay. So with that addition, are there any questions or comments on what the deputy board has just read here?
So that'll change the total amount to 462, 133.
462, 133. So that's a fair amount over where we were last year, I believe, but we knew coming in with $1 million to ask to aim for 400,000. A lot of hard driven that had to take place, and there are, some groups that are obviously going to be disappointed that, but there's always next year, and we can't help everybody in the same year. And as was said partway along this process, we had a lot that were in there that were second year, or 2 year, to third year, or 3 year, so we already had a lot of commitments before we ever started looking at all the new additions to the list. But I think regardless of that, there's still a lot of things in our county that are being helped greatly by the capital or community council grants. And it's what allows a lot of our communities to continue function, both these and municipal service grants, probably one of the best expenditures of our taxpayer dollars. Councilor David Burke.
Thank you, Gordon. I want to make a comment that this, and I'm on this committee and happens there. It is the toughest meeting we have all year. There are many groups that are deserving that we had to cut back or say no to. That's not easy. Good groups, but we only have so many dollars to go around. And I want to, publicly, one of the reasons why we turn down a group or groups is that they only come here looking for money. They're carrying out a function that benefits the county and the towns. They shouldn't just be coming to the county. That's one of the reasons why we turn down some very worthwhile organizations. They have to expand their fundraising effort. It can't just be, oh, let's go ask the county. County's resources are finite. I'd like to point out to certain councillors from towns who always say that we're rich, we're rich. I said, I'll guarantee you that my average resident taxpayer has less disposable income than yours does. Where do we get to be rich? We're frugal. Try to be careful. And it means having to say no. That's not easy. Say no to maybe one of the pet groups that you want to see supported. Well, this is the distillation of a lot of thought and effort put into this. And it's by far the most challenging thing that I personally do as councillor every year. Thank you.
Okay, are there any further comments on council grants? We circulated this one several times between our various meetings, so we've probably discussed most of the concerns. But I don't see any more hands, so at this point we'll go for the vote on those council grants. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Next one is the tax collection policy. Councilor Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved by the municipal council for the municipality of the county of Victo, council adopt the following policy relating to tax collection. Policy number is 20220425. The municipality is just a typo there. The municipality is spelled incorrectly. Victor County Tax Collection Policy. This policy provides guidelines to staff for effective and efficient collection of property taxes and to ensure that all taxpayers are treated fairly and equitably. With respect to the collection of property taxes, guidelines contained in this policy serve to supplement the provincial legislation that governs this area, especially for a situation where a choice is provided allowing for finance discretion and for issues when the legislation is silent. Just go to the last page, 4 pages long, just a reporting. Treasurer or designate shall report on a quarterly basis to the Financial Services Committee balances of the taxes receivable. Included in this report shall be a section on outstanding tax payment arrangements and the status of collection for the quarter. Dated in Victor, Nova Scotia, this date, 6th day of June, signed by myself, Councillor Deborah Wadding, and seconded by Councillor John Butler.
Council seconds.
Okay, thank you. So you've heard the reading of their tax collection policy, and it's been moved and seconded. There's a lot of details in there for sure, which doesn't become very important for some people at certain times, but we need to have that policy to guide our staff, you know, and making sure that we collect as much of our taxes as we can. Are there any questions on that tax policy? I don't see any, so we'll call for the vote on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Now, we have Deputy Warden Murray on the rent LLC.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Resolution be resolved, the municipal councils of the municipality of County of Pictou. The council approved the following appointments for 2022-23 term. Outside board, Pictou County Regional Enterprise Network, Liaison and Oversight Committee, Warden Robert Parker, dated in Pictou, Nova Scotia, 6th day of June 22. I so move this resolution, seconded by Councilor Crawford.
Council second.
Okay, heard the reading of the resolution. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. I want to thank Deputy Warden Murray for his time and effort serving on the LLC for our rent over the past number of years. Do the best I can. Now we move on to our sheep valuers. Councilor Wood.
Mr. Chair, whereas Section 9(1) of the Sheep Protection Act provides for the annual appointment of sheep valuers, whereas appointments in this office have been made throughout the various districts south of the county of Pictou. Whereas in accordance with the aforementioned statutes of Nova Scotia, these appointments require the approval of council. Therefore, be it resolved by the municipal council of the municipality of the county of Pictou, the council approved the appointment of the following sheep valuers for the 2022-23 timeframe. District 2 is Alan Keefe, and District 3, William Ferguson, dated in Victor, Nova Scotia, the 6th day of June 2022. Signed by myself, Councillor Deborah Wadding, and seconded by Councillor John Butler.
I second.
Okay, now that date has to be changed. It was from 3 to yes, there on the last, or be resolved. Okay, so any questions on the sheet valuers? Hearing none, all those in favor? Against? Carried. Okay, so that's the end of our resolutions for tonight. Move on to a request from Councilor Dave Parker on the forest harvesting activities in White Hill. Okay.
Thank you. I circulated a series of photos that I took off the way up a couple weeks ago now. They are all taken on what's known as the East Fraser Road, which is a public road that travels over the top of the hill from the river road over Nursery. It's gravel road. In the late spring, summer of 2021 last year, forest harvesting operation was done in that area on both sides of the East Fraser Road and in and around the intersection with the Halliday. The Halliday Road happens to be the boundary line between the provincial district of Pictou West and provincial district of Pictou East. So some of the harvesting was done in Pictou West, some was done in Pictou East. When it was first, now all of these lands that were harvested are formerly farmlands. What is known colloquially as old field white spruce, of course. Okay. It was, it's owned by the Crown, Crown acquired it decades ago. And I believe they did some of the work on those forests about 25 years ago. But in any event, it was harvested under the new rules, and I want to be clear here that I'm not attacking the Leahy report. There is another area, White Hill, harvested at about the same time, spring 21, very different forest, done by a different operator, still done under the same Leahy report guidelines. Okay, and it looks much better. Problem with old field, white spruce stands, of course, as they grew up thickly, they supported each other as they grew. The harvesting requirement was that they had to leave, we'll say, we'll call it of trees, but one tree every 20 or 30 feet, both directions, which they did through the guidelines on Crown Islands. I heard a couple comments last summer or fall. Oh, looks lovely. Looks like a park. I also heard some comments from people who were more experienced said, oh, it's going to be a mess. Well, those people turned out to be correct. Once winter came with the winds and that, with it, many, as you saw in those pictures, many of those trees blew over, snapped off, tipped over. Okay. Pictures I sent, a dozen or so of them, some idea of the mess, the visual unpleasantness that's there now. And I had a couple calls from residents, that's why I'm bringing it forward. They live next to their harvested area, their land abuts this harvested area. I said there were two complaints, many. And what they're asking, you can't undo it, can't put the trees back up. Okay. What they're asking for, and I'm asking that we send a communication. I want to suggest that it be an email as compared to a letter with the attachment of some of those photos, but I want to go with an email. I want to send it to the Minister of Natural Resources and Renewables, Honorable Tori Westman. I want to send it to the Deputy Minister, Ms. Karen Etienne. She's the Deputy Minister of Natural Resources and Renewables. And I want to send it to Suzette Edshead, who is the current manager of the local natural resources and renewables here in Palms Brook. I'd also ask that a copy be sent to both the MLAs that are affected, Crown, Premier. They can see. Now, I'm not attacking the Leahy, but I am saying please use common sense. One size never fits all, and that's particularly true, unfortunately. If you've been in Truro in the last few weeks, you may have noticed a harvesting operation being done right on top of downtown in Victor County. At the south of the highway, right where the town line carries the Cove Road under the highway. It's exactly the same type of forest. Old field white spruce. Okay. And they're doing exactly the same thing. That looks good with the first harvest. Trees here. Does look something like the park. Give it a year or two. Okay. So what the residents are asking for is that the Crown, the department, send in a machine to clean up the mess. Looks like the devil. It's going to look even worse to turn red in the next couple of months. Most of the trees that tipped out from still green. They're white spruce trees. Okay. They're going to turn red and the needles going to fall out. So that's all they're asking for. They're not asking for a lot. They're asking that the mess be cleaned up. Okay. I mean, sending the machine in there and doing what you can to remove those ones that are tipped over, blown over, snapped off. Let's say you can't go back, can't put the trees back up. Couldn't clean up the downfalls. And what some people quite frankly see is waste. I'd say I support the Leahy report. Much of it's good things. One size never fits all. Everyone loves it. Okay. And we've known for decades that old field, white spruce forests, are very different than mixed forest. Forest that's been regularly harvested. So there's a mess there. People driving by it can't help but notice mess on both sides of the road, as far as you can see, and some. And the adjacent landowners would like to have it cleaned up. Involved in sending a machine back and have it harvest what's tipped over. A little bit.
Seconder for your motion.
Yes.
Seconded by Council Stewart. And so this motion is only about asking them to clean up the mess that's there now, not about discontinuing this practice or anything. You talked about it being happening right now on downtown, and I saw the evidence of it there. There's no mention in this letter of that, it's just coming up and cleaning up the mess.
I would hope that they would see the following and make changes. Just on that type of stand, it's only on old field like spruce stands that this is a problem. So I should be careful. If you have a pure balsam fir stand, which we don't have in it, you certainly have in the Highlands Cape Breton. You did the same thing. Those balsam fir stands, it's probably even worse. Balsam fir will last a minute for me with the spruce instead of the snap one. But they certainly have not experienced in the carbon natural sources and renewables to say, hold on here, that prescription doesn't fit well. Modify it. Okay. I'm not saying throw the baby with the bathwater. I'm certainly not condemning the lady, but you have to use some common sense.
Okay, so we have a motion to send a letter to the people that Councilor Parker mentioned there, to ask them to clean up the mess left behind by this harvest operation in 2021 on the E. Fraser Road. Okay.
Keep Fraser Road White
Hill. Okay, and do we have a second for that? Yes, we did. Treasurer, is there any comments on that resolution, that motion? Hearing none, we'll have a vote on that. All those in favor? Aye. Against? Carried. Next is our rural internet project update. You're on, Brent.
Just by way of update, Telecom are continuing in the field to complete splicing in the Lionsbrook area. Initial splicing for these segments of fibers has been installed, should be completed this week. They will then begin installing drops to homes in the Lionsbrook area. They will also begin the crew, the line crews that will return this week to begin installing the fiber from where they left off in Lionsbrook, roughly around the Pleasant Heights subdivision, and continuing to the West River Fire Hall. And then from there, they will begin, working on the other two lines, one heading towards Salt Springs and then towards New Glasgow. Last week, we did connect our first trial to the fiber network. And there are 12 others to be installed over the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks for trials. So last week was a test run for the crews that did the installs. So they went out to the home, met with the homeowner, get the logistics down, and were able to install for the homeowner. By all accounts, the installment according to plan. There were no issues identified there. So the person is currently operating on what would be our network and our circuitry for the wireless side of the project. They will then be transitioned over to the fiber circuit once the internet service providers are onboarded, which we expect to take place in the next week to 2 weeks. The first internet service provider will probably come on board. so that they will then be transferred over to that circuit. But from, and just from a technical standpoint, that's just moving the cords. That's all that really is. But the initial speeds that the home is receiving are exactly what it should be receiving. There's no issues on the data transport there. For on the tower update, our tower here last week received the CSA approval. And so that means this week, I think it's scheduled for Wednesday, the equipment will go on the tower. That tower will be basically brought online. We have a number of individuals that have been identified as potential testers for the wireless signal on this tower. The Churchville Eureka Tower will be shipped next week for installation, so the work and stuff has progressed there. So that tower will be shipped next week. Co-locations on Hardwood Hill and Green Hill are scheduled for week of the 20th. June. Those are 30 installers that the owners of those towers will allow their equipment. And the Mount Tom Tower is later this month as well. This building last week, the server room, was in essence completed. New fire suppression system came online. So the all the equipment, now that that's been tested, will now be to that room. So that will happen, start happening next Monday, with the basically they have to finish splicing the fiber into that room to the racks in essence. So the racks and servers will be located next week into that room. So then it's operational, or I guess all the equipment that's in operation today will be in this final resting spot. So there is progress being made on that, and as the various segments are being lit up, beginning to set that communication to individuals based on the service that we're receiving. If they're to receive fiber, we'll get communications, how to connect fiber, wireless, so beginning that communication. So that's really the update, and it's all starting to come together and starting to move into an operating.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Would you explain just briefly about fire suppression? Because I know there's all kinds of fire-based equipment in there, you can't go in with a hose throwing water over everything. Just explain for a second how that would work.
Yeah, so in essence, the way it's explained, it's basically a gas, an inert gas, that basically, if it's triggered, it sucks the oxygen out of the room. In essence, is what it does. So it just sucks the oxygen out, which is a requirement for fire. So it basically sucks the oxygen out. There's no liquid put on any of the equipment, so there's no damage to the. So the room is airtight. So that's what was actually done last week. Was the in essence the NN test or the negative air test. That's what they did last week. So the room is completely sealed. So all ceiling tiles are sealed. Any place like wall receptacles are all foam filled. Everything is in essence, so that gas does not exceed from that room.
I'd say they bring water around, I hope they did, but, okay, I just wanted to be clear on that. Okay, I'll open it up now for questions, comments, to do with the excavator and that project. Go ahead, Councilor Fair.
So I just have a follow-up question out there, fire suppression system. So the warning sign, obviously no oxygen in the room, that's a problem. You are in there. Are there warning signs?
Yeah, so it's got a multi-layer alarm system in there for people that are within the room. So if it goes off, there are a number of warnings, audible, visual, of that nature.
They have to evacuate immediately.
Yeah, if that goes off and you're in the room, you are to vacate that space. And conversely, on the outside, there are saying there's audible scope lighting. So if any of those are in use or going off, you are not to enter the room either. So so that's been communicated internally. And then if it ever does go off, then there is a from the emergency response side, the fire department, the building has to then be vented as well to get that gas out of the building. So there's a whole new procedure with it, and it requires recertification every 6 months. Normally, your traditional sprinklers is once a year. That's every 6 months.
Thank you.
Councilor Ballard.
Yes, and sure. Brian, you mentioned that in the first trial, you had 13 households that are being hooked up. Can you give us any feeling as to how many homes you hope to hook up in a certain time frame, let's say over the next 2 months?
So the 13 are people that we have put a call into the trial. And then from there, within the next 2 months, we're looking at 260 that would be potential by, we'll say, the end of August. And then it'll just continue to grow every month from there as they continue to extend fiber. Because once they get to, in essence, a fiber terminal, they can continue to live as they move out. Once they get to the terminal and activate the terminal, and the fiber splice container, I guess is what it's called, then they can hook people up as a role. So it's the initial from here to Pleasant Heights subdivision in Lawrenceburg. There's 260, I think it's around 260 identified homes. That first phase, so the splice work will be completed there hopefully this week to that spot. So then we'll do the initial 12 and then test them to make sure everything is working, the network is able to handle it, and then from there we'll start the rollout to the remaining 250 or so.
That number that you gave the council brother, that's for wired, that's for fiber.
That's for fiber.
But there will be in the meantime, wireless customers coming on once we get this tower and once we get that.
Correct. So I don't have a number of those yet because once the tower is activated, then we the equipment is then tested to ensure the reach, what the actual reach would be. So we may say it's 120, but in reality it will be 100. That will be a good signal strength from it. So those will be determined once the tower goes live. We'll have better data on who will be served, because everything at this point was in essence desktop simulation based on drone flights. They flew the drone in the areas, but once the things go live, the towers go live, then they'll, in essence, validate that information. So,
Yeah, Councilor Keel.
Thank you, Warden Parker. My question is concerning service providers. Well, I have two questions. The first question is, will there be an announcement of who the service providers will be? And are the service providers that are signing up for this stretch of fiber and wireless, will they be continuing on for the rest of the county, or can they opt in just to do certain areas?
so there will be an announcement on the ISPs. Can't make that yet because contracts haven't been signed, but there will be an announcement on that. And really, it will be up to the ISP to determine what areas they wish to service. I would think they're probably going to continue on. There'd be no reason if they're on the fiber network and lines work that they wouldn't want to be on the fiber network when it's installed someplace else.
Okay.
More revenue for them.
Yes.
Right? So
when they're signing on, they're not just signing on, they're signing on with the whole network. I guess, is that going to be too much in the weeds in the contract, but
well, in essence, what they're buying, in essence, circuits from us. So they will buy a circuit, a gigabit circuit, right? So depending on which packages they offer, it's able to determine how many people to put on a circuit, right?
Yeah.
So if they're offering, I'll say 100 meg service. So the basic math would say if everybody was on it using 100 megs at the same time, you could have 10 users on it. Traditionally, you would probably 32 on the circuit because not everybody's going to be maxing out the data at one time. So that's how they be doing it. So they'll be buying more circuits as
yep, that's perfect. Thank you.
Sir Palmer.
Thank you, Warden. Two questions. First one, I was brought up in my breakout meeting about the Seaside and the different other providers that are currently out there. Give not-for-profit organizations free internet service. Is that part of something that we negotiate, or is that something that they offer?
it's something that Seaside offer. They've been offering it. So it's something that we would have to establish as kind of policy. It's easy for us to do on the wireless side for the service because we're the ISP. It's on the fiber side, we're not providing fiber to the premise. The other providers are. So I know in a few cases where we've rented space from say fire departments. We've basically, as part of the lease, we've said we will provide them a wireless connection for free. And now we've only negotiated 2 of those so far. It's
You know, something was brought up and said mentioned here, so, and it's offered by Seaside, so we got.
yeah.
So my other question is, we posted for a position. Is that, have we hired or have we interviewed yet for that position?
They're doing the update I had on that at the end of last week is that we'll have the short list completed this week on that for the number.
What's the timeline, you think, for hiring somebody?
I would say if they can, a couple weeks, probably, if they can nail down that short list this week, they were meeting this week.
Okay. No, my only questions.
Okay, are there any further questions for Brian on the high-speed internet update? I will add that I think PNC Wireless in our area provides some, also with free service about wireless. Brian said it's not a problem for us on the wireless, it's where the no middleman. Now it's always good if you can, to help with your community halls and fire halls and stuff. If we can do that with the wireless. I think the biggest comment I've heard, or that you've heard, is how long before we get this? People are, they're patient, but they're patient wearing a little thin. And we keep telling them it's coming, it's coming. So, telecom seems to be back now working for us. We lost a lot of good time, unfortunately, on getting up Strand and getting up fiber, but now that they're back in the county this week, hopefully that's going to start moving along steadily so we can see some progress. I think the wireless is moving along pretty good. There's a few hard spots yet to get the towers to get the provincial licensing and that type of stuff, but I think it's all moving along. The fiber, you need to amp up, and those that deputy order myself are in conversation with Matt every 3 weeks roughly, just trying to push the issue of speed here. If people hooked up, just as an example, I got one person in my area who really needs it badly, but when we tested the wireless, because they're in a wooded area, they're not going to get very much service there, and so the fiber going to take a while to get there. You want to know that you have to budget like 12, so that's not going to happen at the rate we're going, that's for sure. But I think we have to have confidence in Matt and the team that's there, and hopefully things will pick up speed here and get people hooked up as soon as we can. It's a big need to get people hooked up. Okay, if there's no further questions, go ahead, Peter.
I was just wondering, is the other ones like, I don't know, Bell or them, are they starting to move into the county too, like they're in on the rural, just wondering, because my brother was telling me the other day, he's down at the lodge, and he said now they put internet down there, so I was just wondering if the other ones are starting to into the rural area.
I think they've always been here, various providers. The only thing we fought hard for was not to subsidize others in the area that we're putting ours into. But we can't keep anybody out. I mean, if they've been here, whether it be a Bell or an East Lake or Florida or whatever. I don't know where the premier went with his announcement, to do with Starlink, but there's certainly some Starlink being installed too. And, I guess I think from what I've seen, we can compete with the representative. Compete price-wise for sure on our wireless. And I think we will compete both price and quality on our fiber. So this isn't a county-only monopoly. It's we have to compete with others. In order to do that, we have to have both quality and pricing. Okay, let's move on then to community announcements. Do you have any community announcements tonight? Go ahead, Councilor McNeil.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I have two community announcements to speak of this evening. First event is our community yard sale, and that's being held at the Caribou District Fire Department Hall. And that's this Saturday, June 11th from 8 to 12. And then the second is on Sunday, June 12th. The Caribou River Community Hall is having a takeout breakfast and brunch for Father's Day from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And you can come and enjoy pancake sausages, baked beans, dessert, and juice. Adults are $10 and children 6 and up are $6, and children under 5 are free. So busy weekend in District 3.
That was 9 to 11.
9 to 11.
Breakfast at the Caribou River Fire.
No, Caribou River Community Hall.
Caribou River Community.
Yeah.
That's somewhere out here. Okay, sorry.
On the Sunrise Trail. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other community announcements? Okay, Councilor Butler.
Yes, Mr. Warden, we have the official opening of our walking track in this morning, this coming Sunday at 2 o'clock.
Walking track at the Lismore Hall?
Yes.
2 o'clock. Okay. Good. Okay, we can walk in the back. I will add in District 6, They've been working hard in the old Salem ball fields, trying to get something started there, similar to what they have in Council Thompson's area, maybe up in Springville, or somewhat similar to what's in Scottsburg. So they're hoping to reactivate that old baseball or softball field, and they are having a meeting on June the 15th, Wednesday at 5:30. For anybody that's listening that might hear that. And that's for anybody that's interested in not just being on a committee or whatever, just has input and to help them as to what they would like to see there. Okay, any more community announcements? Hearing none, do we have any emergency resolutions tonight? Unanimous consent required. No. Okay, now you have, I think, camera closed session on the sale of municipal property. So I call for a motion to go in camera at this point.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay,